As Congress heard testimony this week from Bernanke and Paulson about the financial crisis, another type of testimony was occurring on the Hill. A group of politicians, economists, journalists, and business leaders gathered to discuss why the economy was in such poor shape and what to do about it. Convened by the New America Foundation, there were plenty of ideas thrown around the room, but ultimately there wasn't much consensus on either the scope of the problem or the solution. In a way, it was stunning. Here were some of the best economic minds in America, and like the congressional hearings, people were genuinely struggling just to get a hold of what was going on and what specific action was needed. It was a sentiment perhaps best summed up when Senator Byron Dorgan made a surprise appearance.
Onward through the fog seemed like an apt description to me of kind of where we are. I wish that I knew of someone who knew exactly what we should do and what would work. That's not very clear to me, frankly. What is clear to me is we have a crisis.
One philosophical theme did emerge from the fog, though. The era of free and unfettered markets is over, and a new era of American capitalism has, seemingly overnight, begun.
I have to say that we're living in absolutely extraordinary times. We're in the midst of a paradigm shift of extraordinary proportions. The Bush administration, which took office 8 years ago as social conservatives, is now leaving office as conservative socialists.
1981, when President Reagan made his famous pronouncement that government is not the solution, government is the problem, and that era ended this last weekend.
We have to recognize that the fall of communism did not represent the absolute triumph of U.S.-style capitalism, but rather the commencement of a new debate over what precise form of capitalism works best. The events of the past week in particular have forced us to grapple with this, and what happened over this past week to capitalism in the U.S. is truly historic. And it will hopefully start a conversation in America, allowing us to move beyond the ideology and question what we really mean when we speak of concept of free market capitalism, because other countries have been having that conversation for a long time now.
Our company's single-minded pursuit of profit today means that shareholders are getting much more of the economic pie than wage earners. And it's good to remember that U.S. corporations were not always so purely profit-oriented. But in recent years, this more encompassing view of the role of corporations has been almost entirely replaced by the idea that the only business of business is to benefit shareholders, and that in the pursuit of profits, all other values should be sacrificed. What has been the result?
But make no mistake, this crisis could have been avoided if regulators, who were kept at bay by the president and by lobbyists, had enforced rules, and if officials had been able to question risky lending and other dubious practices. This indeed is the result of a willful and systemic failure by the government to regulate and monitor the activities of bankers, lenders, hedge funds, insurers, and other market players.
More than these proclamations, though, one quote stuck in my head.
Just as there are no atheists in foxholes, there are no libertarians in a financial crisis.
Forget about foxholes. Is there any real libertarianism left in Washington anyway? The 1999 law that experts point to as a key culprit of our current mess helped legalize mergers between banks, insurance companies, and security companies. It didn't eliminate rules. It laid down more than 200 pages of rules, in fact. But they were rules that benefited the big banks, big insurance companies, and big security companies that lobbied for them. And that's what most of the major corporate interests in this country want out of Washington. Not no rules, not unfettered markets, just rules on their behalf, markets in their favor. The rhetoric we often hear about free markets from politicians, think tanks, and business groups is too often a smokescreen behind which lies endless schemes. An old line of the Senate, Fritz Hollings, reminded the crowd of the crush of K Street cash that greases the skids of these schemes.
When I left the Senate, I made my final talk about the cancer of money in politics. We spent all our time raising money. My last campaign 10 years ago was $8.5 million. That's $30,000 a week, every week for 6 years.